Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we diving deep into one of the most infamous and heart-wrenching campaigns of the First World War, the Battle of Gallipoli. This wasn't just a battle. It was an epic saga of bravery, miscalculation, and immense human cost, shaping the destinies of nations. So, why did the Allies even decide to attack this small peninsula in the Ottoman Empire? The year is 1915. The Western Front in Europe is a bloody stalemate, a horrific network of trenches where millions are dying for mere inches of ground. The British leadership, particularly a man you might have heard of, Winston Churchill, then the First Lord of the Admiralty, was desperate for a breakthrough. They needed a new front, a way to knock the Ottoman Empire, one of Germany's key allies, out of the war. The plan seemed brilliant on paper. The target was the Dardanelles Strait, a narrow waterway connecting the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. If the Allied navy could force its way through, they could sail right up to the Ottoman capital, Constantinople, what we now know as Istanbul. This would not only cripple the Ottomans, but also open a vital supply line to another ally, Russia, who was struggling on the Eastern Front. It was a bold, ambitious gamble to shorten the war. In February 1915, the first phase began. A massive fleet of British and French battleships steamed towards the Dardanelles, confident they could smash the Ottoman forts guarding the strait with their superior firepower. Initially, they made some progress, silencing the outer forts. But the Ottomans were more resilient than expected. They had reinforced their defenses with German assistance, and critically, they had laid extensive minefields in the narrow waters. The climax of the naval attack came on March 18th. The Allied fleet launched its main assault, sailing into what they hoped would be a clear path. Instead, they sailed into a disaster. The Ottoman artillery was devastatingly accurate, and the hidden mines did the rest. One by one, Allied warships were hit. 3 battleships were sunk, and several more were severely damaged. It was a catastrophic failure. The naval commanders, shocked by their losses, called off the attack. The dream of a quick victory through sea power alone was shattered. With the navy defeated, the Allies made a fateful decision. If they couldn't sail through, they would land troops and take the peninsula by foot. This decision set the stage for the land campaign, a chapter of the story that would become legendary for its sheer brutality and heroism. The Allied forces, primarily composed of British, French, and a new, untested force of volunteers from Australia and New Zealand, the Anzacs, prepared for a massive amphibious invasion. On the morning of April 25, 1915, under the cover of darkness, the landings began. The British forces landed at Cape Helles on the southern tip of the peninsula, while the Anzacs were tasked with landing further north at a spot they would soon nickname Anzac Cove. From the very first moment, things went horribly wrong. Strong currents and navigational errors meant many troops were landed on the wrong beaches, in front of steep, treacherous cliffs and well-defended Turkish positions. Instead of the relatively flat terrain they expected, the Anzacs found themselves at the bottom of a labyrinth of steep hills and sharp ridges. The Ottoman defenders, under the brilliant and determined command of Mustafa Kemal, a name that would later become synonymous with the birth of modern Turkey, were waiting for them. As the sun rose, the beaches became killing fields. Men were cut down as they waded ashore, and those who made it to the sand were pinned down by relentless machine gun and rifle fire from the high ground. Despite the chaos and the horrific casualties, the soldiers showed unimaginable courage. They scrambled up the rugged hills, clawing for every inch of ground. But the element of surprise was lost. The Ottomans had the tactical advantage, holding the high ground and looking down on the invaders. The initial Allied push faltered, and what was supposed to be a swift capture of the heights devolved into a desperate fight for survival. Within days, the battlefield of Gallipoli transformed into a scene reminiscent of the Western Front, but in some ways, even worse. Both sides dug in, creating a complex network of trenches, sometimes only a few yards apart. Life in these trenches was a living nightmare. The summer heat was unbearable, leading to rampant disease like dysentery. Water was severely rationed, food was scarce and often contaminated, and the air was thick with the constant stench of death and decay. And the flies, soldiers wrote endlessly about the swarms of flies, which spread disease from the unburied bodies. Yet, amidst this horror, a strange and profound sense of respect grew between the opposing soldiers. They were all enduring the same hellish conditions. There are famous accounts of unofficial truces, where both sides would emerge from their trenches to bury their dead, and even exchange cigarettes or small gifts before the fighting inevitably resumed. These moments of shared humanity stand in stark contrast to the brutal reality of the conflict. The Turkish soldiers, often dismissed by Allied planners as poor fighters, proved to be incredibly tenacious, brave, and well-led, defending their homeland with a fierce determination. As the months dragged on, the Allied High Command, desperate for a breakthrough, planned one last major offensive in August. This involved a new landing at Suvla Bay, combined with a major push from the existing positions at Anzac Cove, aimed at finally seizing the critical high ground of the Sari Bear Ridge. But once again, a combination of poor planning, indecisive leadership, and fierce Ottoman resistance turned the August offensive into another bloody failure. The fresh troops landed at Suvla Bay were slow to advance, giving Mustafa Kemal just enough time to rush reinforcements to the threatened ridges and push the attackers back. This was the final nail in the coffin for the Gallipoli campaign. The Allies had thrown everything they had at the peninsula and had failed. The casualty count was staggering. On the Allied side, over 250,000 were killed, wounded, or fell victim to disease. The Ottoman Empire suffered similar, if not greater, losses. The dream of a quick victory had turned into a 9-month-long meat grinder. By the autumn of 1915, with winter approaching and no hope of success, the inevitable decision was made in London: evacuate. The withdrawal, ironically, was the most successful part of the entire campaign. Carried out in incredible secrecy and with ingenious deception tactics, like self-firing rifles to make the Turks think the trenches were still manned, the Allies managed to pull out their remaining troops in December 1915 and January 1916 with almost no casualties. But what was the legacy of Gallipoli? For the Allies, it was a humiliating defeat, a strategic disaster that led to Churchill's political downfall for a time. But for Australia and New Zealand, it was something more. The immense bravery and sacrifice of the Anzacs at Gallipoli forged a powerful new sense of national identity. April 25th, Anzac Day, became the most important day of national remembrance in both countries, a day to honor the spirit of courage, endurance, and comradeship born on those shores. For the Ottoman Empire, Gallipoli was a monumental victory, a successful defense of their capital against a massive invasion. It boosted national morale and solidified the reputation of Mustafa Kemal, who would ride this wave of popularity to eventually become the founder and first president of the Republic of Turkey, earning the title Ataturk, Father of the Turks. The Gallipoli campaign stands as a powerful and tragic lesson in the history of warfare. It's a story of flawed strategy and underestimating an opponent, but it is also an enduring testament to the incredible courage and resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Battle of Gallipoli. It's a complex and emotional piece of history, and I hope this gave you a clearer picture of what happened. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more stories from our past. Let me know in the comments what piece of history you'd like to explore next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.